as I mentioned, the radio host who interviewed Sheen is Alex Jones of the Genesis Communications Network. Alex joins me live from Austin, Texas to talk about Sheen's riveting comments. Alex, as I mentioned, the response that we got from doing this story last night, absolutely shocking. So I want to know how it actually all came about. How did the interview with Charlie Sheen actually happen? Did you guys reach out to him? Did he call you? What was the deal?
Well, just to make something clear, Mr. Sheen has amazing courage to do what he's done, and he contacted me. He's been watching my documentaries for years. He's one of the most informed people that I've talked to in Hollywood on this subject. Listen, for years, Hollywood's been on fire with people knowing the truth about 9/11, and I was the first to expose 9/11 on the day. In fact, 2 months before, I had intel that elements of the military-industrial complex were going to carry out the attack. I said they'll use bin Laden, the known CIA asset, as their patsy to take the blame for attacking the towers. So Mr. Sheen is only exceptional in that he has courage in going public, courage that no one else in Hollywood had. I mean, here's a CNN poll from Anderson Cooper a year and a half ago where they said, is the government covering up 9/11? Could they be involved? 90% when the poll closed on CNN said this. So listen, I have my own syndicated show. I've done 4,000 radio interviews in the last 4.5 years. Almost no one calls in and disagrees now. We have the majority view, and we have the evidence. And bottom line, there are declassified U.S. government documents like Operation Northwoods that ABC News reported on back in 2000. Operation Northwoods, Google it, and in there the U.S. government, an element of it said we want to hijack jets by remote control, crash them, and blame it on the Soviet Union and Cuba. Now, that was decades ago. This is why we believe this.
Right.
Then you look at the official story, the firefighters, the police, hundreds of them saying there were bombs in the buildings. They were told to shut up. You look at Building 7, detonators are going off. You can see the explosion.
And Alex, a lot of this is what Charlie Sheen was covering. I'm actually just curious, did he reach out to you guys? Is he the one who put the call into you?
Sure.
How he wound up on your show?
Sure. He called me a few weeks ago and said that he loves this country. He has nothing to gain from this. I mean, in fact, it's dangerous for him to do. But he said, I love this country and my kids so much that I'm going to do this, Alex. And I said, God bless you, because now it may spur other Hollywood people who've got major pull, who know the truth, to start going public.
And dangerous indeed to do, because a lot of what he said makes a lot of people sort of sit back and say, whoa, I don't know about that. And what's really important here, you may not agree with everything that Charlie Sheen had to say. I personally think it's a good thing that he did go on your show so he could go public with his point of view, because it does get people talking. There are a lot of people who may look at this, however, and say there just goes another Hollywood nut job shooting off his mouth. And
well, listen,
I imagine that you think, though, having a Hollywood actor on your side is a good thing, and as you mentioned, may bring some more people to the table talking about this.
Sure. I mean, if you knew some of the Hollywood names that are aware of 9/11, we're talking some of the biggest people.
And any you can tell us about that you've been in contact with?
Because people in Hollywood contact me because I have integrity, and I've been in a few films, and they know me, and they know I keep my mouth shut. It was kind of like back in high school. I learned to keep my mouth shut about girls I was dating, and all the girls start liking you. Look, it's really simple. Let's understand this, okay? 9/11 was an inside job. It was a self-inflicted wound, and what Charlie Sheen is doing is just amazing, and he can only be commended for it, and all he's calling for is a real investigation. I go further at Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. We lay out how it happened, what took place, and it's not just Charlie Sheen I've interviewed. CNN has interviewed some of these people, the only network that I've seen doing it. You guys have interviewed. There have been physics professors that have gone public. There have been the heads of mining colleges that have gone public. George Bush Sr.'s top CIA advisor who briefed him and briefed Ronald Reagan, one of the highest level guys at the CIA, says our government is clearly involved in carrying out terror to blame it on foreign enemies. Did you know that on CIA.gov they admit that they carried out terror attacks in 1953 to blame it on Mohammad Mossadegh in Iran as a pretext to overthrow Iran?
I'm going to all good stuff and all stuff that needs to be talked about, but I'm going to rein you back in here to the topic at hand. And
sure.
one thing that I think is interesting, as I mentioned, we've gotten this overwhelming response. The email has not stopped coming in. Most of the email I've been getting has been supporting the fact that we are bringing attention to something that is rarely talked about in mainstream media.
Yes, sir. You have courage. No one else has done what you're doing.
I appreciate you saying that. So the question is why? Why have so many of the major media outlets not talked about these alternative theories that exist behind 9/11? Why is that?
Mark Twain said that in the beginning a patriot is a scarce man, hated and feared and scorned, but in time when his cause succeeds, the timid join him, because then it costs nothing to be a patriot. A lot of people don't have the courage that you have, AJ. A lot of people don't have the courage of Charlie Sheen. They don't have the courage of the German defense minister, Andres von Bülow,
What do you think,
2 years ago
what do you think they're afraid of that's going to happen to them?
They're afraid of being beaten up by the hordes of neocon intimidators who try to go out there with their Gestapo Nazi tactics to try to bludgeon everybody with their blogs and radio shows to shut up. But they've lost power because people have learned that they're a bunch of liars. They lied about the WMDs. They've lied about everything, and now their credibility is totally blown. The new White House memo just came out where Bush was talking about staging the shoot-down of American planes to blame it on Saddam. That's public. That's admitted.
Well, let's talk about some public documents, because obviously experts, government commissions, countless officials have all come out and supported what is the official line on 9/11.
Yeah, they call Henry Kissinger independent.
Right. Well, we know that those documents are out there and that people are supporting them. So I guess what some people watching us tonight may be thinking is, well, why the heck should I be listening to Charlie Sheen or to Alex Jones and his website on this matter? Now,
they shouldn't. They shouldn't. They shouldn't believe me. They shouldn't believe you. They shouldn't believe George Bush. They shouldn't believe the King Commission, where almost the entire commission has conflicts of interest and was appointed by Bush. You got to love this. He appoints his own commission, and then the media calls it independent. Did you know that the 9/11 Whitewash Commission claimed that there were no columns in Tower 1 and 2 when they had 47 of the biggest columns in the world up until that time? They won't say why Building 7 has blast points going off down the side.
Well, Alex, I'm afraid I got to cut you off because we're out of time. But as I said, it's sparking debate. It's getting people talking, and I appreciate you help bringing that to the forefront.
Thank you. Go to Infowars.com, sir. Find out the truth at PrisonPlanet.com.
Alex Jones, live from Austin. And as I mentioned, we've gotten so many emails on the subject. We'll read some of what you have to say coming up a bit later in the show. Comments about 9/11. We do want to keep hearing from you. It is our Showbiz Tonight question of the day. Charlie Sheen speaks out. Do you agree there is a government cover-up of 9/11? Let's see the votes so far. 65% of you say yes. 35% of you say no, you don't. A couple of the emails we received include one from Dylan in Texas, who writes, there are so many unanswered questions, and all attempts at an investigation have been stonewalled by the government. We also heard from Mike in Hawaii, who writes, how could any sane person believe that our government attacked our own people? Do keep voting by going to CNN.com/ShowBizTonight. You want to email us more of your thoughts? We want to hear from you at ShowBizTonight@CNN.com. Those emails coming up later in the show.
And we'll get to that amazing extreme makeover story in a second, but first let's get to AJ. Preset 4 is on. Go.
Welcome back to Showbiz Tonight. I'm AJ Hammer in New York. This is TV's only live entertainment news show. We have been getting an overwhelming response to our Showbiz Tonight question of the day. We've been asking, Charlie Sheen speaks out. Do you agree there is a government cover-up of 9/11? Here's the vote so far. 67% of you say yes. 33% of you say no. Some of the emails we've received includes one from Jennifer in North Dakota. She writes, Charlie Sheen has no evidence, and it is a shame that celebs get their voice and opinions heard because of their status. We also heard from Danny, who lives in Kentucky. Danny says, God bless Charlie Sheen for standing up and speaking his mind on what is the most devastating event to hit our nation, 9/11. We also heard from Chris in Ohio. Chris writes, this is a very important issue that must be brought into the mainstream. It is our patriotic duty to make sure we find out why and how 9/11 happened. There's the address to keep voting, CNN.com/ShowBizTonight.